Hi folks. So today we are going to make a new print in the studio. I photographed the moon the other night and it was really, really beautiful. And I made an image I love. So today we're going to give it a whirl on the printer. We're living on the edge today because the printer is getting really, really low on most of the ink colors. So I'm kind of thinking about that Seinfeld episode where they're trying to drive as far as they can on an empty tank. It's like that. And we'll see how far we can get. It's happened to me before that the printer has run out of ink midway through a print. But you got to push this stuff, because ink is expensive. So I'm not going to change the ink when the printer says it's low. I'm going to wait until it's out. Let's see how far we get and make this photograph. And I'll tell you a little bit about it as we go.
So I looked out the kitchen window the other night and the moon caught my eye because it was sort of refracted in the double paned glass. So from the right angle, I could see 2 or even 3 little moons. And I photographed this kind of thing before. This is one with 2 little moons. And whenever I spot this kind of thing, it's like, ooh, it's kind of magical, It's like we've entered a different solar system where there are multiple moons. And I always just love it. So every night this week, I have looked for the moon. And then I just have sat on my kitchen counter and photographed it. I turn the lights off to photograph so I can get rid of the kitchen reflections in the window. I thought I'd set a timer on my phone for around the same time the next night so I could photograph it again. And the next night, I learned something that I have gone 48 years without knowing. And it's that the moonrise can change by as much as an hour every night. Did you know that? I never realized it was quite that much. It can be less, but it can be as much as an hour. And I feel like a total space cadet because I thought it would be more like 10 minutes or so. But in a week, the moon had completely outpaced me. And tonight, it's not going to be up until 1 a.m. But while it lasted, I had this nice little window and this nightly practice. And I want to do it again when it's visible earlier in the evening. It's kind of like a little moon meditation, just hanging out with the moon every night and making art together. It's sort of sweet. And, it can feel like the world is on fire sometimes. And there's a lot of horror and trauma and grief that we have to just process through our tender little bodies as we navigate this world. But you might be absolutely mired in that stuff and in the daily news cycles and social media, all the painful or scary things that might be happening in your own life. But then, you know how sometimes you just stop and something really lovely catches your eye? And for a minute, it's like you kind of snap back to the present. It's like waking up again. Like the world might be an absolute dumpster fire, right? But then it's like, oh my gosh, look at that. That is so beautiful. And bing, it's like this mini enlightenment. It's like we're just spinning around on this teeny tiny little planet in a vast universe. And maybe all that matters is just looking up from the chaos and smiling at how gorgeous the moon looks tonight, right? And thinking, gosh, we're lucky to be here at all, And I love how photography helps us access that space. It's almost like it gives us this excuse in a way to be present and appreciate the beauty that really is around us almost all the time. So I want to let you in on my super high-tech practice here with this. This is honed over 30 years of being a photographer, okay? Here's what I do. I just totally guess. I usually just hazard a guess at camera settings with really low light scenarios like this. And then I see what that looks like. And I see if I like that. And then I adapt from there, And sometimes folks feel a lot of pressure with this sort of thing to know exactly what they're doing, and they feel like they've got to be really techie to get low light photography right. But here's the thing, the quote unquote correct exposure might not look great. It might not. And I'm probably going to wind up opting for something a little different, maybe darker or moodier. But I just want you to know that you really can just take a stab in the dark, so to speak, with this sort of thing. And then you can look at it and you can see what you think, right? And then decide and refine from there. It's kind of like cooking a soup. You got to taste it a few times and adjust, and you add a little salt, and then you add another potato if you went too far with the salt, and you just taste it until you love it. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with cooking like that. I actually think you wind up with a tastier soup that way than if you follow the recipe to a T and you don't diverge from it, Like sometimes we need more salt and more spice than the recipe says. We've got to be adaptable and creative. So I wanted an exposure that would get me a little bit of glow around the moon. So I played with that. And I didn't want it to be too perfect. I'm not interested really in making photographs that look kind of like NASA photographs, I wanted a humbler moon. And I wanted the trees to be beautiful silhouettes. I also don't like using a tripod because I want to be flexible and I want to be able to make micro adjustments with my positioning so I can get exactly the framing I want easily. And yeah, that just becomes really annoying with a tripod. And really with an image like this that has so much darkness, you've really got some wiggle room with exposure. So consider this an invitation to make night photographs handheld, and feel free to take a really experimental approach to exposure, because if we follow formulas to make art, we wind up making formulaic art, right? And who wants that? So we really do have a lot more freedom than we might imagine with this stuff.
Okay, so now I'm going to make a test print on some cheap, flimsy paper just to get sort of a baseline look at what the tones are doing so I can see if I need to make any adjustments before I print on the good quality paper. Yes, this will use some ink, but it has to be done.
So when I was working with this image and I was thinking about how neat it was that I had a triple moon, that sparked a memory in me. And I remembered that there is an idea in pagan mythology called the triple moon, which symbolizes birth and life and death, or it can also symbolize the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And here's a weird backstory. I actually have a degree in religion, like the secular study of religion. So more like the history and philosophy, anthropology, that sort of thing. And I wrote my thesis about a pagan eco-feminist women's temple. So I interviewed the women in this community, and they were some of the coolest women I'd ever met. They had a really deep, powerful relationship to the natural world and the cycles of the natural world, and they celebrated the solstices and the equinoxes, that sort of thing. And I was just this naive kid, basically, at that point. And I had to write a thesis that looked at their tradition through like a more critical lens. But I always wish that I'd done it more justice, because really that tradition and their stories were so beautiful and so much more than just like a critical analysis, These were women who were defining spirituality in their own terms, right? And through a feminist lens. And they were tapping into this really beautiful lineage of empowering goddess archetypes. And they were taking their power back through that, and it was amazing. I feel like at that point in my life, I was really sort of searching for more embodied, empowered women role models. And so it was fascinating to get to dip into their world for a little bit. And, photography is so powerful because this one image, this 1 week where I looked at the moon every night, that opened this whole door again for me to this really lovely reflection, and connection. And so I spent last night researching moon symbolism in mythology in different cultures, and that is a fascinating rabbit hole to go down, which wouldn't have happened without this photograph. And the other really cool alignment with this image is that lately I've been thinking about images as little spells. Isn't that a fun way to think about them? Like each image could be a magical little spell, because images can change things in us, right? They can open doors to inquiry or deep personal insight, and they really can be so transformative, sometimes in ways that we don't even really understand in words, you know? So yeah, I like to think of this image as a little spell, and it opened the door in a way for me to reconnect with those beautiful memories of myself as a young woman, learning from these, you know, older witchy women who were just so empowered and so cool. So yeah, it was fun to realize those connections in making this photograph. And you know, I'm in it for stuff like this. It's not just about f-stops and cool lenses, right? It's so much more. Photography can be so much more powerful in our lives.
So I'm gonna print on this paper, and I chose it because it is a little bit like, it's kind of like watercolor paper. It's a little toothy, has a really nice texture, but not too much of a texture, just a nice sort of subtle texture. It's not very heavyweight, but it still really has just a beautiful look about it. So I am going to give this a try and make a bigger print.
I used to always feel like I couldn't photograph as much in the winter because we'd lose the light and I would just generally be less inspired. But in this chapter of my life, I really, really love the darkness. And what I like in particular is that if you have a lot of really rich, juicy, moody darkness and just little tiny bits of light, the more darkness there is, the more that light really shines, you know? So just a little dash of light can become so much more powerful. So I love that awareness now as I'm photographing in the winter. It just becomes, it's like it's filled with possibility for me now because there is less light.
So I noticed on my big print that there are some little tiny, tiny, tiny white spots, and they look like dust to my eyes because that's what happens in a dark room. Just from my darkroom days, I think about little white spots as being dust, but I think they're actually stars, and there's so few stars in the city oftentimes that, you know, it's just like 2 or 3 that show through in this image, and it doesn't look great. It looks like a mistake. So I'm going to edit those out and yeah, just search for them and spot heal them out of the image. They're almost always things that have to be changed after you make a print, you know, like you might think everything looks good on the screen, but then when you actually go to make a print, just seeing it bigger, you can see those errors, right, writ large, and it's pretty obvious. So I almost always do another round of edits when I have seen my print, and I just repair little tiny things. Because my screen is not that big, so when I see a bigger print, I can see more little imperfections and things that I end up wanting to repair. Yeah, this just needs a couple little repairs. And sometimes really dark areas can be just hard to see into on the screen. Sometimes I'll lighten it up just to look at it more clearly and really see all the detail in the very dark areas, if there is any. But sometimes I only notice little funky places in the dark areas after I've made the print. And then I can go in and edit and get it right on the actual file. Somehow the darker places are just harder to see into on the monitor, but on a print it's just obvious. Okay, I think I like the way that looks. It's so satisfying. Ah. All right, I actually can't believe how far we've made it with the ink in the printer, but we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. Okay, finished print. And Tali, hi. I am really happy with it. I made a 10 by 10 and It has just enough lightness so that you can see into it, but it still has nice heavy shadows. I love how it's sort of like pleasingly weird with those 3 moons, like we're maybe on a different planet or something. But yeah, I like how it's moody, kind of spooky, unusual, and I'm loving it.
Do you see how the right third of this photograph is darker? There's like that dark shift in tone in the sky. That is a reflection from the window. And I love that because I think overall this image feels kind of like it's the real world, but it's slightly off. You know, we've got too many moons and the sky isn't quite right. And I love that. And I love the frame of the window over there on the right side and how that sort of balances out the tree on the left side. And I love the soft glow around the moon and how the moon reflections are a little bit dimmer and a little bit softer. So this is the time of year where we often look back at the year and we think about how many great photographs we've made or how many great photographs we missed. And we start thinking about how maybe we didn't get out to photograph as much as we wish we had. And maybe our practice kind of got subsumed by real life and obligations and all those things. So I want to just mention here my year-long photography e-course. It's called Gathering Light. You get a new lesson every single week of the year in 2026. And we talk about things in this class that are way deeper than just the tech and the gear, right? So many classes focus mostly on the tech and the gear. But there's so much more to the creative practice than that, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how to create beautiful images without relying on rules and formulas. It's going to be a full year of weekly lessons, creative prompts, really lovely interviews with some of my very favorite photographers, and just really meaningful conversations about the heart and soul of this beautiful craft. So I want to mention it because early bird registration opens on December 1st. So you can sign up for my mailing list if you want to be notified about that, so you find out when early bird opens. I'm going to put the link to the class below, and you can read what past students have shared about their experiences there. We have a lot of people who take the class every single year, and just super sweet, good folks. And it's so nice to have a forum where you can share your work and get feedback throughout the year and have really rich conversation about what you're doing. So I hope you can join us. It is a full year of photo goodness. It'll help you keep your art more front and center and make a lot of images you really love.
So I just had the idea to try making the print a little bit smaller and to put it on a glossier paper, like a luster paper, just so that the dark, rich tones really feel juicy and yummy. So we're going to try it. I think it's always really good to experiment with different papers. Each image really does kind of have like a perfect match with a paper, and you just don't know what it's going to be until you try a few, you know? So I also feel like making it smaller will make it feel like it's just a little kind of intimate, special little jewel of a print, just a really beautiful little thing. So I'm going to try that. And just run with my intuition on that and give it a whirl.
Okay, so I printed on my favorite paper, the Fine Art Brita. Look at that gorgeous, gorgeous texture and sheen. So reminiscent of fiber-based paper in the darkroom. Okay, so after all that experimentation, the paper that I like the best is this beautiful Hahnemuhle sugarcane paper, which I really don't use very much. It has a very warm color. The paper base is quite cream. I'll show you the difference between the Brita paper, which is so bright white, has optical brighteners in it, and this creamy, creamy sugarcane base. But it just works for this. It has a real kind of like organic feel about it, which I think works beautifully with the subject. It kind of warms up the moon a little bit, and I'm really happy with it. I like the texture, slight texture as well. And I really like it at 6x6, a tiny little intimate print. Makes me happy. So this image for me is really just a beautiful reminder that it's okay for the creative practice to be really slow, like this image took a week to be crafted, and a week to make one image might sound like a lot, but that was just what this image needed. And it was actually really funny because after a week of doing this, I realized that an image I made on the first night was actually my favorite one. Because that's how it works sometimes, right? But the whole experience was a real gift. And I actually love doing it so much that I'm going to continue doing it when the moon is back on a more reasonable schedule that works with my bedtime. But yeah, each night I would go and look for the moon, spend a little time with it, try to catch it at a nice angle in the glass. And some nights it was cloudy, so I couldn't see it. Some nights it was clear and gorgeous. And I just sat on my counter, oftentimes in my pajamas, in the darkened kitchen, and I made photographs. And it was just really warm and cozy looking at the moon, And I just describe it like that because little moments like this are so simple, right? They're so simple, but they remind us that beauty really does exist, and it's often really, really, really close by. Like it might be waiting for you in your kitchen later, The best photograph you've made this year might be waiting for you in your kitchen later. You really don't need to go anywhere fancy to have a deep, connected experience and to make photographs you really, really love, And I always think that as artists, we need time to commune with the world. Like that's the most important part of what we're doing. And that takes time. So slowing down is one of the best things we can do for our art. Because when we slow down, we can see more deeply, right? Like we can get in touch with the emotional tenor of a scene. And when we feel those things more deeply, we're more likely to make better photographs. Okay, that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for chatting about the moon and making prints with me. I really am enjoying making these videos, and everybody's been really nice in the comments too. So thank you, you guys, and I appreciate it. If you'd like to explore creative ideas like these in more depth as they relate to your own photography, there are many different ways to work with me. I have a series of online courses, most of which you can start as soon as you sign up. Some focus on the creative side of the practice, and some are more professional track classes. And I also do one-on-one mentoring with students around the world. That's where we'd meet on Zoom or phone and do a deep dive on your archives, on any challenges you're working through, your current projects and goals, and I'll help you gain clarity and momentum with those things. Mentoring will feel really helpful if you're stalled or unsure about your next steps. With all of my offerings, I bring 20 plus years as a curator, photographer, gallerist, professional portfolio reviewer, educator, and juror to the table. I give you all my best guidance and support. The links are below for all my current online classes and to schedule a mentoring session with me. And if you enjoyed this video, please share. It does help support the work I do. Okay, happy photographing out there. Be well.